I didn't sell pictures to TMZ. I can't say that they're not going to be able to find another picture. Right now, Anthony Weiner admitting to our Dominic Carter that there could be more photos out there. We're going to have part 2 of that very interesting interview with the former congressman and potential mayoral hopeful. And next,
New York City was next on their list of targets.
were the alleged Boston bombers heading to the Big Apple? New information today shows the brothers headed to New York for another attack. And later,
for your love of country, thank you very much.
you know, it's a big event when all U.S. living presidents converge on the same place. Politics was mostly put aside today at the dedication of the George W. Bush Presidential Library. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. We have all that to get to, plus also big doings in Westchester, and we'll talk campaign finance reform as well. So a lot to get to in the next 60 minutes here. So we begin tonight, though, with the interview that a lot of New York and political circles buzzing about. Last night, we brought you part 1 of our interview with Anthony Weiner. Now, after almost 2 years in basic hiding, he dipped his toe back into the limelight and appears to be gauging the public's appetite for a Weiner mayoral bid. Our own Dominic Carter sat down with the former congressman for a wide-ranging interview yesterday, and a lot of folks are talking about it today, Dom.
Well, Richard, the interview you referred to was surprisingly personal. He was frank and even emotional at times. He is just part of what we showed you last night. In private moments, Mr. Weiner, any time you break down in tears in the past?
Oh, yeah.
Is that therapeutic for you now, or?
I don't do it because I don't know. I don't sit and say, let me turn on and cry. I mean, but yeah, this was look, New Yorkers know what this was. I did these things. These were personal things that I did that were played out in an embarrassing way for the world to see. So at the same time that I had to try to repair my marriage, I had this public maelstrom going on around. It was an enormous amount going on, and I think that it's something that obviously takes the deepest emotional toll. And you combine that with the idea that so many people out there have put their faith in me. And so, you know, look, I've got enormous blessings. I'm in many ways a very lucky man. I've got a wife who stuck with me. I've got a 16-month-old at home who, you know, loves me throughout it. So I'm very lucky, but I'll let someone else decide what was the worst thing about what I did. I know it was a very bad thing, and I'm very sorry for it.
Now, the major headline to come out of that interview was that Weiner acknowledged that other photos and other women might be out there. We discussed that. Mayor Michael Bloomberg of New York City and his potential rivals in part 2 of the interview. How do you assess Christine Quinn as Speaker of the City Council?
I like Christine. I mean, you know, she and I have been together in public life for a long time. You know, for me, the term limit thing was a deal breaker, though, I must confess. You know, you jumped from 2005 to today. We were supposed to have an election in between there that I had some eyes on. You know, I think that is when the citizens vote, that creates a scaffolding, a foundation on which everything else that government does rests, good and bad. When citizens decide something in a referendum, that scaffolding exists. When you decide, to heck with it, I'm going to get rid of the voice of the people. I don't care what they think. I've got a better idea. I think it's so important that I continue to serve or the mayor continues to serve. To me, it undermines the very foundation of our government. So on that one issue is kind of like one that stuck in my craw more than others, but overall I think the people running for mayor are decent people, and they're people with whom I've worked over the years. And I'm not going to get into the race because I out of animus towards them. It's going to be because I have a different vision.
When you say deal breaker with Christine Quinn, what does that mean?
I don't think I could vote for her.
Even in the general?
I hadn't contemplated that formulation. Ask me then. I've never voted for a Republican in my life. I think my arm might fall if I did, so I'll have to cross that bridge when I get to it.
Bill Thompson.
You know, I think I see where you're going here. Look, there's going to be plenty of time for us to compare records. Right now, today, without me saying another word, you can compare our positions, because I put out my book. They've got some that are out, not as no one has 64 ideas, but they can compare their own. But all the candidates, you're not going to, you know, you're not going to find me saying bad things about them. We might disagree on ideas, but I like everyone in the race.
Why come back on Twitter?
You know, Dominic, Twitter didn't do this to me. Facebook didn't do this to me. I did this to me. You know, I did a dumb thing. But social media, and you're an adept user of it, you know, it has a place in government. It has a place to take away the filter that often leads people in high government places not to hear from their constituents the way they should. You know, we just saw over the last couple of weeks in Boston, it's a remarkably powerful tool for people for two-way communication between citizens and government. So I am not going to be, you know, I'm not blaming technology for what happened to me. Technology is going to be part of public life and part of governance for years to come. And frankly, it's also a way that people can respond directly on ideas to the city, on keys to the city, and they can, you know, they can be encouraging or discouraging or have their own ideas.
You know, we appreciate the fact that you gave us a lot of time to sit here and talk to you. And so I'm going to wrap this up because we're running out of time. I just need to ask you 3 quick questions. Sure. Has Bill Clinton told you you can be elected mayor?
I'm not going to get into private conversations I've had with the president.
How much has he advised you?
I haven't. I'm not going to get into conversations I've had with him about that stuff.
You said here tonight, in your own words, that you exercise bad judgment.
Yeah.
So why should the people of New York trust you as the mayor of this great city?
It's a legitimate question. It's a fair one to ask by you and by the public. And I guess what I would say is that yes, I mean, this thing that I did in my personal life, it's reasonable for people to look at it. And I guess the question that I would want people to ask is, how do we judge him? I mean, what is the correct way to do it? And I think, and maybe this is something that has become more acute now that I'm in this situation, but I would like to be judged the way I think that everyone should be judged, by the fullness of what they are and the fullness of what they've done. I can't say that in my public life I never made a mistake. I never voted wrong on something. I can't say that every position that I took was one that everyone agreed with. But there's plenty that people can go to look at about me beyond what happened in that period of time that was splashed across the newspapers. And I would encourage them to do so. And if they don't want to look back, they want to look forward, go to keystothecity.org and look at some of the ideas I talk about. But if people want to continue talking about it, I would just say that they know basically what they need to know. I did it. I'm filled with regret about doing those things with more than one person. And my wife and I are moving forward, and she's forgiven me and given me a second chance. And so they know about that chapter of my life, and there's plenty they can learn about the other.
I close this way. Is Bloomberg's legacy, and you've talked freely, you didn't demand questions in advance for this interview, as some people do, but is this scandal over? Might there be something else to come out that we don't know about yet? Some face-to-face meetings or anything like that?
Well, I can tell you that I've never met the women that were at the other end of these anonymous conversations, and but I can tell you this: I didn't sell pictures to TMZ. I didn't go do interviews, and you know, I can't say that, you know, that, I mean, I should say that these women at the other end of these conversations, many of them had their lives turned upside down and made no choice to do so. But I'm not going to participate in that anymore. If reporters want to go try to find more, I can't say that they're not going to be able to find another picture or find another, you know, another person who may want to come out on their own. But I'm not going to contribute to that. The basics of the story are not going to change. It's behind me. It was a huge mistake, and it's something I'm filled with regret for.
What is his legacy?
Look, I've disagreed with the mayor on many occasions. I spent a lot of time trying to, you know, make sure he didn't have a second term, let alone a third term. I think there are many things about Mike Bloomberg's legacy that he can be proud of. I think that racial tensions in our city under Giuliani had reached a boiling point, and he's done an admirable job turning them down. I think that some of his ethos of government, of kind of leaning into problems, I like. I mean, you might not always like his solutions, but I like the idea that he sees being mayor means being a spokesman for the urban agenda and things like guns and immigration. I said the term limit repeal was a deal breaker when we talked about Speaker Quinn. I think it is going to be something that is going to mar his legacy. I think that is going to be something that is seen as so fundamentally contrary to democracy and so fundamentally an example of the rich and powerful taking advantage of the rest of us, that it's going to be the thing that's going to be in his biography very prominently.
Mr. Weiner, we thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate it. Let's do it again.
Thank you.
Thanks.